Steel Curtain Network.
¡Por Jorgito! ¡Goes down! Najee Harris! DJ Watt!
What is up, Steeler fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined as always by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. We're getting you ready for Week 4, trip to Indianapolis, back in what used to be the RCA Dome, now Lucas Oil Field. Dave Schofield, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going all right. I've driven past that stadium before. I think it was back when it was Lucas Oil. Is it a whole new one, or has that building been there a long time?
I'm trying to think of that. I don't know. I know it's Lucas Oil Field now.
Yeah.
They used to call it the RCA Dome. I don't know if it's a different structure though.
Yeah, because I drove by in like fall of '96, on I-70 there, and it's like, okay, they look. That's a cool. I can at least say I saw the stadium, but I don't pay attention when stadiums are new unless they're so fancy pants like stuff in LA that when it happened.
It's so fun stadium, yeah.
All I know, forget that. It's good old Acrisure, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. Bryan, what's up?
Well, hey, I got to jump in on that. I think it was late in the Peyton Manning years, if I'm not mistaken, when the new stadium came about. It's 2005 ground broke for it, so they've been there since 2008. The Indianapolis Colts. So hasn't been the worst place for the Steelers to play.
No.
Good place for the combine.
Yeah, it is. How's it going though, Bryan?
Oh, it's going great. I love being 3-0, being a fan of a 3-0 team. I'm not 3-0, but
I only wanted two.
But I love the feeling, because remember how good that feeling was back in 2020, but we knew it was going to end, and this is just new horizons. It just feels different. We know there's going to be losses in there, but it just there's something special about the unknown of this team.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknown, and I think we're starting to kind of like meander our way through the woods here on this season, and there's a lot of news surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers, but again, just like last week, almost all of it derives from the injury report. Players that are practicing, players that aren't practicing, quarterback discussion, which all stems from the injury report. So why don't we start with that like we did last week? Dave, do you have the Steelers injury report handy? There's a lot of
all 15 names.
Wow, they're rested players.
Okay, well, let's knock the resting players out first.
Yes.
Okay, players that rested either fully or limited on Wednesday that were on the report were Najee Harris. He was he rested completely. Dante Jackson was another one that was rest, although he got that little bit of a shoulder that he left the game with. Cam Hayward, who rested partially yesterday, fully today. Larry Ogunjobi was partially yesterday, and then today joining Cam Hayward was Miles Killebrew and Cordero Patterson. I think I got them all right. Yeah, I think it was all 5 of them. So that's knocked out. Russell Wilson, same old, limited both days. Roman Wilson and Van Jefferson full both days. That's good. That's good news for both of them. Still don't know if the Steelers will have Roman Wilson active just because he's healthy. He was healthy last week, and they did not. Trying to get him, up to going. Deshaun Elliott was one that was limited. Yeah, let me double check. He was limited on Wednesday. He was back to full on Thursday. That's good news. That was a quadricep. The big one that's bad news is Jaylen Warren didn't practice either day. We knew Alex Highsmith and Michael Pruitt already been ruled out with groin and knee respectively. They didn't practice either day, not surprisingly. Isaac Seumalo limited both days. On his way back, don't know what that'll mean for Sunday. And let's see. I think that was all outside of the rest.
Yeah, it doesn't. If I were betting, man, I wouldn't bet Jaylen Warren's going to play this weekend. No. And so my question would be: would they call up someone from the practice squad, or would they just roll with 2 with Cordero Patterson and Najee Harris? And everyone was freaking out when Najee Harris was reportedly in the locker room with a sling on Monday. So everyone's like, this is bad. This is not good. Not that bad. Another bad. So, but Bryan, I'll throw it over to you. What's your take on the injury report?
I was freaking out with the Najee thing. I will tell you that too. The injury report is interesting to me because it's stuff that we have braced for. We braced for the Highsmith thing. Now, the Highsmith thing comes with I want to warn everybody not to be excited about Highsmith's injury because, sure, it gives Nick Herbig a chance to start and play and to see what he can do. But you don't want to see a guy like Highsmith for what he does go down. You're a stronger team with 3 of those guys. So, but we expected, I mean, a lot of us did expect that when we heard groin right away. And we know I want to make Dave smile here. The groin injury, groin injury. If you remember Cheers.
Yes.
But I look at Dante Jackson. He's the new Larry Ogunjobi. It seems like he is going to be on that injury report every single week. He might be limited here, he might be there, but he seems like he's the gamer, that he's going to be there on Sunday or whenever they kick off, come hell or high water. Jaylen Warren, yeah, that's disconcerting. It seems like he really hasn't gotten going this year, but we saw traces of what Cordero Patterson can do in that Jaylen Warren role and that dual purpose role as a wide receiver. So there's where we talked about in the offseason, and I was starting to think this was dangerous thing we talked about how deep this team is. And when the offensive line stuff started, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, forget about the whole depth piece. They're getting killed here. But some of that depth is really coming into play right now. But when it comes into play and you're using that depth, there's no depth behind you. So that's when you do have to, now you have to start biting your tongue and crossing those fingers.
All right. I'm going to ask you guys a question. And Dave, I'll start with you. And some might call this a conspiracy theory. I don't necessarily see it as that. But do you subscribe to the theory that the Steelers are slow rolling Russell Wilson's return from this calf injury, or do you think it is that severe?
They are not slow rolling it. If they are, then they are literally telling him to don't do this in practice, don't do that in practice, not because you can't, but because we won't let you. There's a reason he's not rolling out and doing the bootleg in practice when they're showing these videos from camp. From practice.
Yeah.
So it's not. If he was their only option or their only real viable option, and it was, oh wow, we're having to go through an 0-3 Mitch Trubisky stretch, then guess what? Russell Wilson would be out there on the field playing through it, complete like what the Chargers were trying to do with Justin Herbert last week. They don't have to Justin Herbert this. I don't think they're saying, oh well, he's fine, but we're just not letting him do it. It's obvious looking at him in practice. If you listen to the Steel City Insider with Jim Wexell on the Steel Curtain Network, that's all you need to do to hear what is going on with Russell Wilson, because he's telling you he's not the same guy that he was at OTAs. He's not moving the same. So to think that this is something other than that is kind of just jibber jabber, because it really is that Wilson is not his self of what he even was for the spring in the Steelers with the Steelers.
Brian, what's your take?
Yeah, Dave hit it on the head. I mean, look, he can't go. They wanted him to go. They wanted to, there's not too much return in your investment that you need because you're not paying him too much of anything, but you have the luxury of Justin Fields, who I don't care what his numbers are, what you like, what you don't like. He's 3-0 as the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they're starting to gain momentum with him. I mean, I want Russell Wilson to be healthy. I want all these guys to be healthy. And I'm going to take a Dave line from forever. Whoever gives us the best opportunity as fans to watch the Steelers win, that's who we want to be in as the quarterback. So I just don't think that they don't have to fast track it. But if he was healthy enough, they would at least see what they have and bring him out for a series or two and play around with it. My gosh, they're doing it with guards. They're doing it with tackles. Just when we poo-pooed it last week on how they did it with the tackles, they did it with the guards last week. And he taled about how they did it with the guards.
Yeah, but we're fine with it because it worked this time.
Yeah. Because it worked. So I think you would see that with the Steelers quarterback situation, but there's no reason to aggravate it even more. And I heard the most ridiculous take this week. just saying that, hey, should they go ahead and pull out Justin Fields when Russell Wilson is ready, just so he can miss some games, so his contract number will go down next year? And I'm like, that's the most ridiculous thing. If Mike Tomlin heard you say that, I mean, he'd probably yell at you.
I thought you were saying it because of that way it's still a 6th round pick and not a 4th.
No, they're talking about
one too.
yeah, and you could. And
Yeah.
I was thinking about that in my head too. But just the price tag, just because if he keeps on winning, that price tag's going up. Who cares? Let the price tag go up.
Let me ask you this quick question before we go to the Colts injury report. If the Steelers were in the situation of the Browns and Ravens at 1-2, okay, do you think Russell Wilson is actually out there trying to, like, he's playing? The Steelers are saying, look, I know the calf's is bothering you a little bit, but we kind of need you. Dave?
We don't deal with hypotheticals, Jeff.
Oh, good God.
No, we deal with hypotheticals. But no, I understand what you're saying, because that's a great question. And you know what's even better than that question? Not having that actually be what's going on.
We are podcasters. We are not coaches. We can talk about this stuff.
We can. And that's a really valid point. Is Russell Wilson to a point where he could go out there and Justin Herbert it? I'm sorry, I'm going to keep calling it that, because that's really what it would be, where you're not super mobile. You can't do everything that you're supposed to do, but you in that state makes it the best option. I would say if the Steelers were 1-2, yeah, that's exactly what the fans would be clamoring for. But would the Steelers do it? That one's tough. I'm sorry, I'm giving you a bit of a Dave answer, but in this case, I don't know what the Steelers would do in that case. That's why I'm so grateful that they're not having to make that decision.
Right. What about you, Brian?
I think Mike Tomlin thinks of himself as the anti-Harbaugh in a way. And we saw, and I talked about this last week, talked about the Ryan Clark situation in Denver years ago, where, don't want him to go because he told him flat out, don't want you to die. And we talked about, I brought up the coach last week from Varsity Blues, and let's just shoot up Wendell and get him out of there. I don't think Mike Tomlin's that way. I think he cares more about the system and the player than to go out and he'd rather fix the problem than go ahead and rush a guy. I mean, maybe I'm waxing too poetically on who Mike Tomlin is, but I think he's got a lot of conviction.
Okay. Dave, you look like you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to hop back in with this, because Afton says she likes the nuances of Dave answers, but anyway. I don't know if the Steelers would be starting Russell Wilson if they were 1-2 and things were not going well. But I will tell you this, I could all but guarantee he would be pushed harder in practice to be coming back sooner.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Okay, that's enough talk about quarterbacks. Justin Fields is going to start this weekend. Let's talk about the Colts injury report. What do you got there, Dave?
Oh, the Colts injury report. A bunch of people that I'm like, I should look up their names. Here's one that I know. I know the name. I can't remember exactly why. Cornerback Kenny Moore has not practiced either day this week with a hip injury. That's a significant. I mean, is that a significant name with him?
Oh yeah.
That's what I thought. That's why it's okay. Cornerback Chris Lamons, I'm going to think it is, has a knee and ankle, didn't practice either day. So that's 2 cornerbacks you're looking at. They're probably dealing with short lines there. Linebacker Grant Stewart with the heel was limited Wednesday, but full today. Defensive end Kwity Paye, we should know that name. Quadricep, didn't practice either day. Tackle Braden Smith didn't practice with a knee on Wednesday, but was back full on Thursday. 94, or what is it? No, I'm reading the number now, not the position. Defensive end Tyquan Lewis was limited both days with a calf/wrist. I don't think that's the same injury. And new on the injury report today is center Ryan Kelly. Is that their starter?
Yes,
I think so.
I thought so. He did not practice today, Thursday, due to a neck. So that was a new one for Thursday.
So, man, this is disappointing. No bones. Like last week, we had a fibula. That's because it's not a Wang that's doing the injury
Well,
report.
heel, you could look at that. Is that the bone or is that the? Yeah, I don't know.
Heel spur,
Yeah.
Achilles issue.
Yeah.
It's not that whore of a Liz Frank. But anyways, Brian, what do you think about the Colts?
That heartless wench.
that goes. My kids have the quote book, and every time I say something like that's going in the quote book, that's going in my quote book. Whore of the Liz Frank. Kenny Moore's is a big deal. He was a Pro Bowler in 2021. In 2022, he was signed to an extension, 3 years, $30 million, and the guy is a very good player. Ryan Kelly's even bigger on this list. I think he's a multiple Pro Bowler, and he might have some All-Pro distinctions. We'll have to look him up, but
I'll do it.
Just those guys alone, man, that hurts the Colts because Kelly is former first-round pick, but just definitely great.
Four-time Pro Bowler.
Four-time Pro Bowler. And I think he was when was he a rookie? Like 17, 18?
16.
Okay.
He was the 18th overall pick, the 2016 draft.
Yeah, and a current Pro Bowler. He was on the 2024 team as well. So I mean, he's at the top of his game. For a quarterback that needs a lot of protection, sure, he could run, but Richardson needs all the help he can get. He can't lose his center.
Yeah. Dave, any thoughts on the Colts? Or
hey, those nameless gray faces are going to line up out there. No, you're just going to have to play whoever's out there.
The Colts is the Colts. All right. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear a word from our friends at DraftKings, and we'll be back to talk about key matchups and things to watch in this upcoming game. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. Thank you for being patient. We have a super chat here. I did not see a comment. John,
I found his next one.
Okay, $1.99. He gave us that tip. Thank you very much.
He had several, but this was the next one.
All right.
Found.
The sled is the MVP of this.
Oh, the sled.
Remember, that's not some people. The reports are that it's not the same sled, the type of sled people thought it was. But yeah, I have to say about just one thing about that. I feel bad for Russ, but this might be like the perfect storm for Justin Fields of, hey, you're getting an opportunity to show what you can do without saying, well, if you don't get the job done, you're benched, you're demoted, because it would just be the other guy came back, and he can't breathe easy because it's still not his job. Although he says it, he did say it's starting to feel like it's his job, which is good. That's what it is. And I think that might be one of the better things for him. So as long as you keep winning, just keep winning.
I will encourage everyone out there, if you haven't yet, Cam Hayward's latest podcast has Justin Fields on it. And so what I did, I went to YouTube and I fast forwarded through the first half, which is Cam and his co-host talking about the latest game. Cam's all coach speak anyways. And the Justin Fields interview is fascinating because he's a different guy in terms of he's not your typical quarterback in the league. He's very quiet, but get to know the player a little bit. Seems like a pretty good guy. It's an interesting listen. We'll put it that way. So I recommend you go check that out after some all of our podcasts, obviously. All right, let's talk about matchups here. Players to watch, whatever you want to call it. What are we looking for here? Brian, we'll start with you. This is a matchup between two teams that have, or at least one team that has some glaring weaknesses. We'll see what you think.
Well, I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive backs up against some really good wide receivers, and Michael Pittman, the second, third, seventh, he's somewhere around there. He's really good, and he's probably looking for a measure of revenge after that DeMonte KZ hit last year as well, taking on the Steelers, but he was tearing them up beforehand. But this is a different Steelers defensive backfield. But Alec Pierce has made his presence known. Fantasy owners are like jumping towards this guy, and FanDuel owners as well. This guy's putting up a lot of points, more of your slot guy, but he's a guy that you can't take your eye off either. They can probably burn you. Wide receivers have not been burning this team. That's how excited I am about what's going on in that secondary in Pittsburgh, but you gotta, if the Colts are going to go ahead and beat this team, they're with the focus on the ground game, and you have a great ground game as well, but with the focus on the ground game, they're going to have to open up those wide receivers, and those guys are capable of doing so in Pierce and in Pittman.
Yeah. Dave, what's your thoughts on well, you can talk about that if you want, or you can bring up something else that you hadn't.
Oh, I'm going to bring up something else.
Okay.
Because the game within the game. And this might be such a matchup that it actually, let's just say it. It's not that it's going to stand out in a huge way in this game necessarily. It just might stand out. It might erase something that could stand out otherwise for both teams. But when you have a 6-time Pro Bowl, 3-time All-Pro guard lined up against a 6-time Pro Bowl, 3-time All-Pro defensive tackle in Quentin Nelson and Cam Hayward, watch it every snap. I'm telling you, if you have the opportunity, maybe you just say, no, I'm going to watch the game, but I'm going to watch it back, knowing that that's something I'm going to want to pay attention to. If there's a replay or whatever, look at those two guys. That they have had some great matchups in the past. Do you remember the one? Which game was it where Minka had the basically the 100-yard pick six?
You were at my house
Pittsburgh?
with my dad watching.
Yes,
that
I
one,
was.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know. Remember that
Ryan
was
Hoyer
one.
was the quarterback.
Well, but
wasn't
had
he?
to come in because who got hurt? Who was the quarterback that got hurt? He got
was it
stepped
Matt? Was
on.
it Matt Ryan?
No, it
wasn't
It wasn't Phillip
was
Rivers,
it like
was it?
it's like a Jacoby Brissett or something like that.
it was Brissett. Yes,
yeah.
it was.
And he got hurt because Cam Hayward drove Quentin Nelson back so quickly.
He
that
ragdolled him
stepped
that
on
game.
his foot and twisted his ankle. So that was one that Cam just dominated. But honestly, the last one, not so much. So that's just if you want to talk about two players that have been one of the best at their position over the last Nelson's only been in the league since I think 2018. But ever since that time, that's an epic matchup that doesn't have all the glitz and glamour of a corner and a wide receiver or a linebacker and a running back. That's two guys that get it done in the trenches, just squaring off against each other all the time. It'll be interesting because Cam's been drawing a lot of double teams. Don't know that was going to be a play in this time. You got to see how this works out. That's going to be a good one.
Yeah, we didn't get to see this last year because of Cam's injury. And
he was there, but it wasn't.
Yeah, well, that's not the same. But the first time they played, I think it was Quentin Nelson's rookie year. Cam ragdolled him. It was. There were plays I remember seeing clips say, "Holy crap!" But then Quentin Nelson, he took that serious. The next time he played him, he was ready.
Yeah,
and he held his own. So for sure. Brian, did you want to say anything about that before I go on?
Well, yeah, what a great matchup that I was not even thinking about, but I do have to, shameless self-promotion. That's the game that you guys laughed at me when I picked the score, and it was exact. He was like, that's such a bizarre score. It was like 26-24 or something like that. Whatever it was. And we hit it.
All right. So I'll talk about the elephant in the room. It's the fact that the Indianapolis Colts cannot stop the run to save their life. Now, the last game, they did better, but they're surrendering 179 yards a game. That is the 31st ranked run defense in the league. The Steelers average 130.7 rushing yards a game. That's 12th in the league. I'm wondering, so everyone talks about, dams. The Steelers have been saying it on offense. Dam's about ready to break. Well, if a dam is leaking, you got to try and stop it and plug it up in some way. My question is going to be, how are the Colts going to try and stop the dam that is leaking, which is their run defense? Are they going to load the box and say, if you're going to beat us, it's not going to be this way? And are the Steelers going to be prepared for that? And are they going to have either a counter punch or are they going to go through the air? And we have seen that happen before where a team will say, we're going to load it up. And what we saw with Matt Canada and even in Randy Fichtner's time, they'll load the box and they will just continue to bash that against the wall repeatedly. So I'm really curious to see what the Colts do. They know these numbers. They know what their people are saying about their run defense. What are they going to do? And how are the Steelers going to go against that? How are they going to try and counter that? That's going to be interesting for me. So, Brian, we'll throw it over to you unless someone wants to talk about that.
No, that's absolutely correct, because if that dam's about to break, then it will be beautiful. And you always worry about in the past when you have teams that are like that give up so many sacks. This was like 3 or 4 years ago. They give up so many sacks, and you're like, the Steelers are going to feast, take the over on sacks, and they get one. And you're like, what? And that's when they're going through that epic streak of all those games with a sack. But I just think the biggest news that we can hear this week was when we found out that on Tuesday that sling was nothing. He's ready to go. And that being number 22, Najee Harris. This could be the opportunity for the breakout game for those running backs and the running game in general. And that's going to mean so much more than what Dave and I spoke about. I think that is the key. You said elephant in the room. Yeah, that's the biggest storyline of the three. Dave's and I were valid, but that one's huge.
Yeah, did you have any other ones that you want to bring up, Ryan?
Oh, I want to talk about yours.
Oh, go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because that was a good one, Jeff. That was a great one.
Thank you.
To me, it comes down to 2 players. Najee Harris, George Pickens. You're going to put extra guys in the box for Najee Harris. How are you going to help defend George Pickens?
Yeah.
If you're going to say, nope, we got to keep somebody on George Pickens, Najee Harris, you've got to run the ball like crazy and make them have to stack the box to help out George Pickens. Those 2 are the 2 that I'm really looking for here. If they stack the box, you've got to make them pay. And how many times for the last couple of years have we felt like, oh, they're stacked in the box, but the Steelers either A, don't have the offensive weapons, particularly the ones that are taking the snaps to make them pay, or B, the OC with the cojones to actually make them pay. And now it feels like, whether it was one or the other, that you don't have that problem with either one, hopefully. So if they're going to do that, then, Justin Fields, trust George Pickens, make it happen.
There you go. I like it. Brian, anything else?
Yeah, I do have one more. And if I have the wrong defender, please help me out. But I would think that Patrick Queen on Anthony Richardson might be a very big matchup here. Because
you're stealing my X factor, Brian.
Oh, okay.
I'm just telling you, I'm going to use it on the website this weekend.
You think it would be? Well, do you think it would be Queen, or do you think it would be Peyton Wilson?
I think it's going to be Queen, because he'll be out there every snap.
Okay,
that's kind of what I think too.
Yeah,
but man, Peyton Wilson
that's a good point there, Jeff.
Giving himself reason to be in there, and that's true. But look at the quarterbacks the Steelers have faced. The Falcons and Cousins, not really a speedster. Herbert with a bum ankle, wasn't really a threat to run, and Nix was probably their biggest threat to run in week 2, but nothing like what you're going to see with Anthony Richardson, who could be Lamar-esque with what he can do. So it's really going to be interesting. I know this is not a head-to-head battle, but just the mobile quarterbacks in Fields versus Richardson, it's going to be huge to see who's going to control the game more and help their game more with their legs.
That's a good point. Dave, anything else from you?
Let's see.
Play hard.
Oh, of course we're going to say that, but that's not a matchup. How about Chris Boswell versus a dome?
I love it. Do you think he'll go for 60 plus?
You know what? I'm going to say no. You know why?
Because
you're not going to have to.
Okay, I'm gonna go and honestly, my Let's Ride podcast on Wednesday, I dive into the numbers a lot more in terms of where teams are trending and even looked at like third down data. But I will say this: Anthony Richardson has thrown 6 interceptions in 3 games, and I gave a not bold prediction on Twitter the other day when I said, if there's a game that Minka gets off the schneid, he didn't have an interception all last year, doesn't have one this year, it's this game. It's Anthony Richardson, who's not really the most accurate passer. We knew that when he came out of Florida. He's still really inexperienced. And I think this could be he does a huge arm.
Yeah.
it's the intermediate throws. He's just all over the place. So maybe this is one where Minka gets his hand on a football. I hope so. Fingers crossed. So, all right, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back after the break, it's time for everyone's favorite game, the over/under game. We're gonna give our predictions. We're gonna do some reminiscing, and we're gonna talk about Steelers trivia. If you're watching us live in any platform, we weren't going anywhere on the audio side. We'll be right back after this break. All right, welcome back, folks. It is time for the over/under game, everyone's favorite game, at least the three of us here. Dave, after last week, because I wasn't on the post-game show, it was interesting. I was curious as to how everyone did. Why don't you update those?
We had some pretty nifty performances. I had, well, let's just say in your over/under picks, I had my best week, but in the game over/under picks, I had my worst week. Because I did not pick the correct winner because I wasn't sure the Steelers offense could score enough points against that good Chargers defense. And that's one that I love being wrong with. But I still don't understand. You and Brian keep pounding the over week after week with the defense that doesn't give up 10 points or more. But I thought I did all right where I got 3 to 6 right last week. But honestly, it didn't compare because you and Brian both got 5.
Aha.
The only one Jeff missed was that you said that the Steelers weren't going to turn it over. And the only one Brian missed.
What a fluky turnover, by the way. Like it bounces around like I think 8 out of the 22 people on the field touched it. But anyways.
And the only one that Brian missed was the Chargers rushing yards. Like I said, if the Steelers would have held them to 120, that would have been a win. They held them to half that. Half that.
I love it.
Did you take the under on that, Dave?
What?
Did you take
the under? I know. I took the over. It was 112.5, and I said I think it'll be over, but not much. And that would still be like a win if they held them to 120.
Yeah,
they still held them to half of what I thought would be. See, because obviously if they hold them to 2/3 of what they had been doing, that's pretty good. No, they held them to 1/3 of what they had been doing. So
some called that the worst line of my life ever. I'm sorry.
So Jeff is still in the lead with 13, ahead of Brian with 9, and I'm trailing with 7. But if we're doing the game picks, I still have a 2-point lead there. I didn't gain any ground because you guys, like I said, you guys keep taking the over. Because we all just got 1 out of 2. You guys picked the game right, but not the over/under. I picked the over/under, but not the game.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there with 5. You guys each have 3.
So how many does Jeff have total?
Really? Yeah, you're going to start this game again?
No, he's leading. He's leading, right?
I said 13.
Okay, and I have what? I'm not 9. Making fun of you. Okay, I
no. It's like post-game flashbacks. Every time I give a number, Brian has to ask me to give it again.
He's not paying attention.
I am paying attention.
Seattle has 2 losses.
Touchdown zone. All right, we ready for the over?
Jeff 13, Brian 9, Dave 7.
All right. I bet Brian got kicked out of class a lot as a kid. Anyways, let's go the over/under for this week, week 4. Ready, Dave? We have 6 new ones.
Yep.
All right. Pittsburgh Steelers defensive sacks. Now, I will state, I'm going to try to be honest with everyone, that the Indianapolis Colts with Anthony Richardson have only surrendered 4 sacks through 3 games. All right. And I've got this line at 2.5. So, Brian, over/under.
Jeff, this week I'm not speaking to Dave. So if you could tell Dave that I'm actually going to go and take the under this week. I believe in the Steelers defense, but this is a team that protects the quarterback. The Ryan Kelly thing could change some things, but Nelson's still there. There's some good players on that line. I'm just going to go with the under.
All right, Dave.
The Colts haven't played TJ Watt yet. Give me the over.
I'm going over as well. I think it's going to be around 3. I just think that the Steelers are going to have them in passing situations where they're going to be able to abandon the run. So that's where I'm going with that. All right, let's go to Pittsburgh Steelers defensive takeaways. I mentioned that the Anthony Richardson has thrown 6 interceptions so far in 3 games, and those are their only turnovers. They have yet to fumble the football. Steelers takeaways at 1.5. Last week, they did not get a takeaway. First game of the season. Brian, over/under.
It's got to be the over this week if you're going to beat this team, and I think the Steelers are going to beat this team. Spoiler alert. But you're going to have to victimize Anthony Richardson. He's going to have to make some mistakes. And I really think that the way this team has been taking the ball away, their plus minus is fantastic. I'll go ahead and say, yeah, the Steelers get the over.
All right, Dave.
I had in my mind 3. So when it wasn't 2.5, I was really happy there was 1.5. I'm definitely taking the over.
I'm going to go with the under. I think it's 1. Ooh. I think that Richardson has been told, don't turn it over, which is also why I think he's going to take a sack or 2, which is why I went over on the sack. But that's
a good point.
All right. Let's go to Steelers turnovers. So the Steelers turned the ball over last week for the first time. The interception thrown by Justin Fields. It's their only turnover on the season. I have the line set at 0.5. So Brian, over under.
It is hard to get through an NFL game without turning the ball over, especially hard for a guy like Justin Fields to go 3 games perfect that way. Now, he did throw an interception, but I'm talking about the fact that he has been labeled as having loose fingers. As far as that goes, is that a word? Loose? Is that a phrase? Loose fingers? I don't think that is.
Loose lips sink ships.
Yeah, well, loose fingers, loose lips. Wow. So let's just say that I think they only give up 1.
Okay.
But and 1's a victory in my mind. If you only turn the ball over once, that's a good thing. With great line, Jeff. But with that line, let's go ahead and say the over.
Dave?
Like Jeff said, he took the over on the sacks, therefore he's taking the unders on the takeaways. I took the over on the takeaways, thinking they could have as many as 3, but thinking that they still have that they could still finish in the +2 range because they could still have one themselves, but not even until after they already force a couple. So that's why I'm taking the over of 1.
I'm going under, keeping it clean, baby. All right, let's go with 3 player. This is player lines now. So Najee Harris rushing yards. And we talked about how porous the Colts rush defense has been. Najee Harris, maybe a little banged up. No Jaylen Warren probably this week. Line is 72.5. Brian, what do you think?
That's a great line because he's pretty much 70 every week. That's his sweet spot. I'm going to take the over. I just feel it's that dam breaks. I feel it's his breakout game.
Okay, Dave.
I don't know that it's going to break. It very well could. This could be one of those that he could. But even if it's not, I think he keeps hitting that 70. He's bound to throw in a 75 in there. So I'll go with the 75 and go with the over. If you would have put this in the 80s, I would have gone the under.
Yeah, I thought about it, and I went with 72.5.
That's why it's such a good line.
I don't know if they're going to use Cordero Patterson as much as they had Jaylen Warren when he was healthy. And so if I'm leaning more towards, okay, maybe they're just going to kind of lean on Najee, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'm going to go with the over.
And here's what's crazy. You could be entering the 4th quarter and he could only have 30 rushing yards and he could still hit that over.
Absolutely. That kind of happened last week. I think I had on my parlay for my podcast on Friday, I had him at 60 plus. He was not close to it. And then on that last drive, he ended up getting over the yardage necessary. All right, so let's go to the next one. Pat Freiermuth targets. Last week, he was targeted 5 times for the curious. I have the line set at 4.5. Brian, over under.
Wow. I'll go over. 5's good.
Okay, Dave.
I'm gonna go under. Because if they stack the box, that's going to make it harder for Freiermuth over the middle.
Okay. I'm going to go over. I think the Steelers, I think you might see the Steelers spread this team out more than you think, because I think they're expecting them to load the box. So we'll see what they do there. And then lastly, Justin Fields passing yards, 210.5. 210.5. You went over 240 last week. Brian, how do you see this?
If they stack the box, then Justin Fields could make him pay with George Pickens. If the defense of Kenny Moore's not in there and they have a little less, my gosh, you can very easily get what he said, 215?
210.5.
Yeah, I mean, I think let's go over. I've been the over king this year.
Okay, Dave.
Yeah, well, I'm going to take the under because I want to see a Pittsburgh Steelers team that doesn't even throw the ball in the fourth quarter. And why would they not throw the ball in the fourth quarter?
They got to lead
because they don't
it.
need to. I want this to be a game that they don't need to.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take the under as well, but not by much. I think he's going to be around 200.
Yeah.
I really was tempted to do a total yardage and say it would be around like 275 rushing and passing combined.
That would have been interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was too much thinking for this time of night. So, all right, let's, so there you have the 6 over-unders for this week. Let's talk about the predictions. Here's the line currently, according to DraftKings Sports. If you're talking money line, the Steelers are minus 125. The Colts are plus 105. The Steelers are giving 1.5 points on the road with an over-under of 40 points. 40 points. So with that, Brian, how do you see this game shaking out? What's your score?
All right. I think the Steelers are going to put some points on the board this week, but putting points on the board could be 23. And that's a lot of points for this team. And right now, that's all that they would need. So I'm looking at a score of 23-13. So with that being 36, what is that?
That's the under.
Wow, I went under.
Yes. You guys
Why
finally are getting wise. You guys are killing me.
That's my score prediction.
Oh, wow.
I said 23-13. 23-13.
Did you say it already?
No, I have it written down because I do it on my Friday podcast with Jeremy Jerome Betts.
I already had mine written down and it's already showed up in the live chat.
What is it?
Okay, well, here's the deal. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the Steelers suck in week 4. I mean, it's bad. I have an article coming out. Rich and I talked about it Big Bro and I talked about it on the Scobro show about how this is the worst week by far, a large margin for the Steelers. And they have never, under Coach Tomlin, in fact, you have to go all the way back to 2004, never won in week 3 and then turned around and won in week 4 since 2004. Now, some people are like, what about 2020? They technically had a bye week in week 4 because it got thrust upon them at the last second. So there were 2 weeks in there where there was a bye that kind of messed that, or 2 weeks, 2 years in there that there was a bye that kept them from being able to go to it. Well, the other one, they were already, they lost in week 3 and then had a week 4 bye. So that one, they wouldn't have been able to do it anyway. So this is a bad spot for the Steelers. I picked them when the schedule came out, loss. So far, I'm perfect from our predictions from when it started. I went win, loss because of that week 4 thing. But what the Steelers have done with me is to show that this isn't the same Pittsburgh Steelers team. There feels like something different going on here. I loved how my brother talked about it. Seems like the offense and defense are actually working as teams and not feeling like 2 separate units, even though the defense is super elite right now. It still feels complementary. It feels like they're encouraging each other. It feels like it is one Steelers team. I really like that. For that reason, and you could say it's the law of averages if you want to, I am taking the Steelers to win this week, even though, so I am going against what would have normally been my better judgment based on the numbers. My thing is the Steelers are going to buck the trend. I have them winning this one 27-10, which would be the under. And once again, I'm not having the Steelers give up more than 10 points.
All right. I love it. Interesting stuff. Let's get this $10 tip from Ken. I think it's Cruz or Crew. I'm sorry.
I'd say
Ken. Thanks, Ken. He says, appreciate you gentlemen and the entire Steel Curtain Network crew. Amazing content every single day. Keep killing it, fellas. I did see someone in the live chat say, hello, BTSC. Hey, that was the old stomping grounds. Okay. This is Steel Curtain Network now. We are now our own entity, a part of Fans First Sports Network. I appreciate all that they did for us at BTSC. No hard feelings, but this is a new entity. And Ken, thank you very much. I really hope everyone that's watching or listening to this has checked out steelcurtainnetwork.com. Dave and I put a lot of time and effort into that website. We have a lot of great contributors, and I want you all to check it out. It's at steelcurtainnetwork.com. All right. So instead of Brian doing trivia, he's going to. What's up?
Officially, you were 23-13, like you said, right?
Correct,
which obviously is then the under. So sorry, you guys don't get to make up any ground on me this week because we all have the same picks for
That's fine. I don't care. As long as they win. That's all I care about. All right. So instead of doing trivia, Brian's going to go take a trip down memory lane here about Steelers Colts. Go ahead.
All right, Dave, start the clock. Give me 90 seconds.
Oh,
oh my God. I'm actually going to do that.
Here's the deal. There's low-hanging fruit here, and I'm sure you guys might take it. But if I'm going ahead and looking at a special game to me, it would be in 2014. My buddy Darren said, and you hear me talk about Darren, he's my pessimistic Steeler friend. And so I remember on the way down, the Steelers were like 14-point underdogs. Andrew Luck was in his prime. The Colts were scoring a lot of points back then. The Steelers were not. And this was a early November or late October game, I believe, October 28th, something like that. So going into this game, he's been in my ear on the way down. We're listening to the pregame. I text my wife and say, oh my God, this is going to be the worst ride home when the Steelers get crushed in this game. They did the crushing, 51-34. Andrew Luck had 400 yards passing. Ben Roethlisberger had over 500, and he had 6 touchdowns.
I was going to say that was the 6 touchdown game, right?
And next week was a 6 touchdown game.
Back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. I mean, they were the Bumblebees. It was a great day, and I was there. Man, there's better Colts Steelers games, but one that I was there, I loved it.
Love it. 90 seconds.
Oh, that was 70 seconds. Great job.
Ooh,
Great job.
Very good.
Well, I was
very
good.
good.
Seconds late starting it, but you were
That's
well.
okay. That's still
within
under. That's still
But,
under.
You know, there's a lot of good Colts games. Jeff and I, we watched more than one together, I think.
Yeah. Think so?
If I recall.
Now that you mentioned
I
it.
don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, what's your trivia, Dave?
My trivia actually is it's just good, fun Steelers stuff that has nothing to do with the Colts. Doesn't even have to do with this time of year, because I was, once again, just for the fun of it, because I'm researching for making sure I have all the information for the article I'm trying to find where it is in my notebook, so I'm stalling. I know it doesn't do any good when I actually tell you that's what I'm doing. That the Steelers week 4, the numbers are just really bad under Coach Tomlin. But to make sure that how bad they were comparatively, I looked at all the weeks, and where the Steelers have the most success since 2007 is in weeks 17 and 18. I've got to group them together because we've only had a week 18 for 3 years, and the Steelers are 3-0 during that week. But the Steelers are also 14-3 in week 17 with Coach Tomlin. Can you name the 3 losses? And I'll give you a hint. All of them were week 17 when there was only 17 weeks.
Huh. The 3 losses in the Mike Tomlin era?
And Mike Tomlin era.
Shoot, because I remember them winning even when they rested a bunch of guys, too. Go ahead, Brian.
The night Wang Harbs was christened, it was that Doug Hodges year. That was a week 17.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was. In the rain.
And oh boy, did that piss me off that day. Hence the nickname. So that game, we'll go 2019. This is all in the Mike Tomlin era, right?
And yes, all Mike Tomlin era.
I mean, there's got to be. Oh, well, no, they won that. They won in 2018. Wow, I'm struggling here.
Stumped. I can't think of anyone.
And here's the thing: most of them
I watched one of them with Jeff.
Most of them were division games. So I would have to say 2018. No, they won in 2018. That's right. That's when Antonio Brown took off.
Yeah.
The Browns and the Steelers in the COVID year.
When Ben, Cam, and TJ didn't even travel to Cleveland, and Mason Rudolph almost beat them, and then we don't want to talk about what happened the next week.
Is that the game you watched with Jeff?
Yes.
Okay.
That was 2020, right?
That was 2020. So 2019 with Duck Hodges, 2020 with a bunch of starters resting.
And then 2021.
Nope, 2021 and all those, they won them all. The third one was once again a backup quarterback who some people believe is the best backup quarterback that the Steelers have had. Who's the legendary backup quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Charlie.
That would be Charlie Batch in 2007 when the Steelers rested their players and they lost. Was it in Baltimore? I'm trying to remember for sure.
Because
in Baltimore, 27-21 in week 17.
That's the game that got Billick. Not that game didn't get Billick fired, but Billick was fired after that.
Yeah. And that's it. So if you look at week 17 and 18 in the Tomlin era, the only 3 losses were Charlie Batch, Duck Hodges, Mason Rudolph.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. All right, gentlemen, let's do some final thoughts. Brian, go ahead.
All right. So we have people coming over the house again for the first time because we had that flood in 2018, but now we're doing Steeler Central over again. Dave, we are not pausing games, so you're allowed to come back. There are no pauses.
Sunday ticket, man. I'm not leaving my couch.
Yeah. But we're fun. But something's happened this year. You know, I talk about the 3 of us are big time family men. And I hear Jeff talking about watching the game with his kids. I've heard Dave mention it. For me, my kids don't watch the games. Connor, who took over with became a Penguins fan 2 years ago, all of a sudden wanted to join in the traditions, and he's learning the games. He's sitting there with the whole group. And Connor and I love the show Ted Lasso. And you guys haven't watched it yet. When you do, you will think it's the greatest show ever because it is absolutely fantastic. And they have a player named Jamie Tart, and he is their superstar. And they have a chant every time that he scores a goal. And it's a sing-songy chant. And I love to sing. And so for some reason, TJ Watt got a sack in week 1, and I started it. And within seconds, everybody joined in. So I want to bring this up to you because you're going to hate the song that it is. But when TJ Watt makes a sack, there's nothing better than an entire room going, TJ Watt, TJ Watt, TJ Watt, TJ Watt. And the whole room is doing it. And they're screaming it. And it just feels like magic. It feels like what you get to do and watch those games. Those are the games you don't forget, especially when you're doing it with your son and your friends and you're chanting and cheering like that. That's a great feeling. So when TJ Watt gets his 4 sacks this week, even though I took the under, do the chant. It feels really good.
All right, final thoughts.
Wow. Yes. My thing is everything about the numbers tells me, like I said before, that I should say, oh, this is a classic Steelers letdown game. I just don't think this team is equipped in a way that they're going to let down. Think about it. The defense. Oh, they're missing Alex Highsmith. Nick Herbig's got to step in, step up. So you know what? They're gonna rally for that kind of reason. This offense had an improved week last week, but they shouldn't be complacent with where they are. They've got to be keeping it up on the upward trajectory. I'm just banking on the Steelers can keep it rolling just because the way this team is built. I'm hoping that I don't come on the post-game show and say, you know what? I knew I should have done it. I should have stuck with my original pick. No, this is an opportunity for the Steelers to come out and say, you know how it was really nice to have the football with a 2-score lead with 5 minutes left in the game and just kind of run out the clock? Let's get more than a 2-score lead in this one. This one would be really nice. That's a nice step I would like to take. Now, if the Steelers end up winning a nail-biter or even have to come from behind, I'm still going to be just as happy because they managed to get the win. So as much as I would like to see a decisive win, more than anything, just bring home the victory. Go Steelers.
There you go. I will say that, Brian, it is special when your kids start to share in that bond. I remember some really great memories of my dad and his friends and me there. My kids are now starting to turn down opportunities to go and do things because the Steelers are playing and they want to watch the game. So it is, it's very special when you have that bond because it brings back a lot of memories from when I was a kid and all that stuff. So yeah, it is very special. And we are all family men here. So, all right, good stuff as always, gentlemen. We will all 3 be on the post-game show. I'll be there. Finally, I've missed last week. It drove me nuts.
It'll be good to have you
there.
Jeff.
I will be there. Someone's got to captain the ship. Dave did a good job. So did Brian. Thank you all very much.
It wasn't the same, though. It wasn't the same with our friend Jeff.
What wasn't? Yeah, and it wasn't the same doing Scobro show after talking to Rich during the post show. It was like, come on.
Yeah. All right. So make sure everyone checks out all of our podcasts. Have some great content coming up on the podcast side all weekend long, getting you ready for the game. Make sure you check out SteelCurtainNetwork.com. But Dave, send us out like you always do.
Hey.
We'll see you next week on another Steelers preview.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.